YouTubers, Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel. Just here, enjoying this little crisp afternoon we're having. Crisp evening. No snow, no rain. Hallelujah. Anyways, I want to bring you guys this important emergency video on the Vancouver and Canada housing market. Very important. I would like to send a special shout out to my man Mario. I'll leave a link below to his video. He made a video about the Vancouver housing crisis / Canadian housing crisis, how it's become a plague. Really well put together video, really well thought out. Definitely someone that's in the know. It's definitely someone that knows what's going on. Now, people need to understand, and I've said this in many videos, that in the grand scheme of things, you're going to have a lot of these shell companies, whatever you want to call them. They open up corporations, and they start creating these channels of wealth. Shadow flipping, money laundering schemes, reselling the same house 15, 16 times to get money, and there's lots of that going on. That's been happening since pretty much since the turn of the century, of recorded turn of the century banking history that you could recall, right? And it's usually the big banks that are behind this kind of stuff. It's usually the big wigs that are behind this kind of stuff. It's usually not the guy at the bottom, you know? The guy at the bottom that steals $50 to feed his family and ends up spending 20 years in jail. Not that guy. Anyways, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, just so that we're really clear on this, okay? Any country that has free enterprise or a free market will expect a flux and dictated prices on things. You're going to expect a flux of people coming in and buying homes, minerals, mining companies. They're going to get their hands on everything they can. Why? Because it's a free market. Okay? The United States is somewhat of a free market. Why do you think it's so hard to immigrate to the United States or so hard to get in? Why? It's because it's somewhat of a free market, but they don't want their country being sold out. Right? You had that whole Nestle scandal last year. I don't know whether they're selling gallons and gallons and billions of gallons of water for a price of a banana to China, I think it was Nestle, right? But I don't know if you guys remember that. But that's just how things work. When you get into these big conglomerate companies, that's how it's plain and simple. It's as plain as day. You know, we're not going to argue the floor and the ceiling. You know, this is the floor and this is the ceiling. We're not going to argue that because that's exactly what it is. And what's happening now is when you have free market countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, kind of somewhat United States, okay, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, those countries, most of those countries are all free market countries. And most of the Eurozone. Those countries, people go in and could pretty much buy up the electrical company in that country if they wanted to. They could pretty much go out into Canada here and buy up our water company bit by bit over a decade and end up owning the entire water company and charging what they feel like for water. Now, one pinch we're getting the most of is the housing. We're getting this pinch in the housing because supply and demand, and people generally just want to buy their own homes. But what's going to happen is when they keep getting bought up by foreign investors or speculators buying up, there's no more supply to fill the demand. So the prices go up. And that's a big problem. Okay? And that's what happens to a free market country. Now, I'm going to say this again, just so you guys understand what I'm talking about. Because it's happened to me firsthand. I went to Mexico. I lived in Mexico almost 2 years. When I was in Mexico, man, is it ever amazing country. Beautiful country to live in. The poverty is not as big as they make you believe up in the north. It really isn't as big as they make you believe. Everyone pretty much works and does their thing. They don't make a lot, but they're happy. Mexico is a family-oriented, cultured country where family sticks together like glue. You know what I'm saying? Fortunately, we don't have that here too much in like in Canada. I don't see that a lot here where I live, or my family's close, but I'm saying like just in general. Anyways, I wanted to buy a house in the state of Guerrero, a beautiful house, and it was like 20 grand. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just pay for this thing in cash. I'll just buy it. It's fine. I'll pay 20 grand. No, you can't. So I went to the bank. They're like, you can't buy this house. Well, but no, it's for sale. The house is for sale. I told him in Spanish. No, you can't buy this house. No, sir. I'll bring in the owner. I talked to him. The house is for sale. No, sir. You're a foreigner. You cannot buy a house here. Oh, I don't know what that means. Like I understand what he's telling me, but I don't know what he means by that. And he's like, well, but there's so many like Mexican people come to Canada. They buy homes and they live their lives. Oh no, but sir, because Mexico's rules are different. You cannot buy a house in Mexico, and you cannot open a bank account. And if you want to work, you have to go through some sort of. It's a very complex immigration system to be part of. You can never become Mexican. Basically, you have to go through a lot of rigorous. If you thought the United States was hard, Mexico's worse to get into, right? So I'm not picking on Mexico. I'm just saying how it is. And if there's anyone Mexican watching this, please comment below and tell them how it is. Like, it's just the way it is. I'm not being a racist, I'm just telling you guys, right? And that's what happened. But there's a lot of countries like that, like China, Thailand. When I went to Thailand, I wanted to, I'm just going to open a nightclub here. This place is booming. You got all these Brits coming, all these Russians coming into Thailand, partying it up. Lots of pretty women. I mean, this is fantastic. Man, this could be my dream job, right? Opening a nice club. And when I started looking into the nitty-gritty of it, you can't own anything in Thailand. Why? Because you're a foreigner. Oh, it's just like Mexico. Yeah, just like Mexico. And a lot of people say, yeah, I got a condo in Mexico. A lot of people watching this, I got this. No, you have it under somebody else's name, through a subsidiary, through this, through that, and you never really own anything. You think you own things. On paper, it shares something that you own something, but in reality, you don't own nothing. The government can take it from you at any time. But in Canada, we don't have that. In Canada, anyone pretty much can come in here. If they qualify, they just buy a house. And a lot of people, a lot of foreign investors, do not want to park their money in the weak stock market. The stock market is really weak right now. And now with the Trump bump and all these other things that are happening, a lot of people want to park their money in real estate because they feel it's safe and it's always going to go up. But then the problem is that demand doesn't exist for the people, like the supply doesn't exist for the demand. For the locals, then the locals get bought out. And that's what you call getting bought out of the market. Mind you guys, I'm kind of jumping between different things just because I'm teleprompter free, as my other hand holding the phone. And I just come out and say, what's on my mind or what's going on. So this is what's happening in the grand scheme of things, okay? So a lot of people are parking their money in real estate. I was sent about 10, 12 links the other day from New Zealand. From somebody, they sent me a link on my fan page. And just go to, on top of the YouTube channel, you see my fan page. There's a Facebook thing. It's in Portuguese, don't panic. I'm very well known in Portuguese Africa. Long story, next time. But anyways, sent me 12 links. I'm like, people living out of their garages in New Zealand. People renting out a bunk bed, not the bunk bed itself, the whole bed, but a bunk in a bunk bed for $800 a month. People renting out tents in a backyard for $1,000 a month. People renting out, you gotta be kidding me. And it's getting really bad. And that's what happens when you have a free market. And the people inside the country that are paying the taxes and actually contributing to the healthcare, contributing to society, are the ones that suffer the most. And that's just how it is. And like I said, we're not going to argue the floor and the ceiling. This is the floor, and that's the ceiling. We're not arguing this, because that's what it is. And that's what's been happening. Now, so the price of housing is skyrocketing. The government's seeing it going way out of control. Now they implement a foreign tax. And that dampened down a lot of sales in Vancouver. Now, a lot of the foreign investors are going to Toronto. They're going out of town. They're going up to Kamloops. They're going up to the Okanagan. They're going up to Kelowna. They're going up the Sunshine Coast. They're going everywhere to basically invest in a free market. So a lot of people trashing the foreign investors, it's us that created the free market, right? The Canadians themselves. We created this free market for us to be able to buy, for us to be able to, and we weren't stringent enough to put in policies into place for protection, to protect our citizens. And now it's out of control. Now, a lot of people ask me, like, you got to remember, guys, that I have no education. And it takes a guy like me with no education, with no real business background skills, like strong ones, I mean, I got my own business, I do well and stuff, but it's not that. Like, I'm just surprised that we don't have this higher level of platform discussions from people that are well known in the communities to actually stand there and explain to the people or kind of educate the people what really is going on. And that's, I'm really happy that gentleman Mario made his video and put it out there, because it just goes that people just need to get out and talk. There's nothing wrong with talking. The number one topic in discussion is the housing prices. Getting to the root of it is very important, because this way we could find a solution. You know what I'm saying? Find a solution to fix the problem. And that's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. Now, a lot of people ask me, how do you fix this? Well, it's very simple. I thought of this, and I was talking to one of my employees, and I said, you know what? I know how to fix this problem. And it's a fair problem. And you can't call it a racist problem, because it's going to work both ways. And I'll explain to you how it works. Let's say I'm the government of Canada, and we have to start reforming things because things are out of control. Okay. So let's look at our partners to the south, the United States. Hey, how's it going? Let's look at our partners to the south, the United States. Okay. Now, whatever the United States has with Canada in a relationship, saying, to move to the United States, you must have this. For a Canadian citizen to move to the United States, you must have all these things, or we have these visas available. What Canada does in return is make the exact same law in reverse. So as an American, to move to Canada, you must have this, or you may apply for this visa. Vice versa. And people are like, oh, okay, that's fair. It's exactly what the United States. And then I would say Mexico. Mexico's next. Now, for relationships between Canada and Mexico, an example. A Canadian cannot buy in Mexico. A Canadian can't do this. A Canadian can't stay longer than this time. A Canadian needs a tourist visa. A Canadian needs this. A Canadian needs that to go to Mexico. Fine. Canada in return says, Mexicans coming to Canada, this is the laws. You can't buy in Canada. You can't do this. You can't do that. And they're like, oh, why? Well, because in your country, you have the same law. Now, that's not racist, because you're just matching what they offer your citizens, and your citizens match what they offer their citizens. And I think that's fair. So, me can't buy a house in Mexico, no problem. But if I'm the government of Canada, I say, well, Mexicans can't buy houses in Canada. I'm not trying to be a racist, but if you understand what I'm saying, it's the same. Then Mexico might loosen its grip with Canadians and make it more fair, right? Same thing with like Thailand, I'll talk about, and China. Same thing with those kind of countries. Countries in Central America, it's the same thing. Not just Mexico, Central America. Countries like Argentina. Like, it's really hard to buy property in those countries. It's really hard to open a bank account. It's almost impossible. Like in the US, you can still buy property. Canadian could have a snowbird house, wintertime go down south in the States. That's fine. See, it's not as rigorous with the United States and Canada, but other countries like Mexico and stuff, like Thailand, what if we just implemented that law where whatever you offer Canadians, we offer to your country? I think that's a fantastic idea. I think Japan and Canada have really good ties, right? Like in Japan, you could go X amount you could apply easily for a work visa. You could apply for this. You could do that in Japan. You could own property after X amount of months being in the country as a Canadian citizen in Japan. Then in return, Canada changes its laws with Japanese citizens that come in and say the same thing. You're allowed this, you're allowed that. You could have up to this, you could have that. So this way, it's a blanket carpet fairness across the board. Because having a free market and letting everyone come in and buy, but then in return, if something happens to North America and it sinks underwater, no one's going to take us in. No one will care about us to take us into their country. You see what I'm saying? So, let me know what you guys think. Like, a two-way immigration / investment policy that mirrors the other country. So if Antarctica, I don't know what the treaty is with Canada and Antarctica. So if I could go to Antarctica and open a business and that, people, Antarctican citizens could come, or Iceland or whatever, could come to Canada and do their thing too. Just like we mirrored with them. With Europe, for example. Europe is complicated because it's divided in different states. Canada doesn't want no Portuguese. They don't want a lot of like Irish. They don't want a lot of the working class to come. They want more like from France. For France, for example, people from France can come to Canada very easily, obtain citizenship, fill out a few documents. Same thing for Canadians moving to France should have that same mirrored. So you see what I'm saying? I don't want to keep talking about the same thing, but I'm giving you an example. So whenever a country is really harsh against certain people from coming in and we don't want you in our country, well, we just mirror what you do, and that's not racist. This way, it's a fair playing field across the board, across the world, and every country just mirrors what other countries have policies in their country. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if this maybe 10, 20, 100 years might actually be like something people might look at and say, yeah, you know what? Because a lot of people are going for open borders. But then how is open borders going to work? They want to have an open border policy. Okay, they have an open border policy. But then there's certain countries we still can't go in and buy because they don't want us there. So how do you make it fair so it's not an open border for the West to sink or Europe? I don't know, guys. Comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your feelings are about this. And I want to thank everyone for that gentleman for making me that video. And yeah, it goes a lot deeper than a lot of things. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a good night. Bye.